for community goods and great barbecue. That's what you'll find at the Coker Market, located in Coker, Alabama at the four-way intersection off of County Road 140. Their hours of operation are Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m., and their menu items include the Midnight, which is smoked ham, smoked pork, Swiss cheese, Creole mustard, mayonnaise, and a pickle, grilled on French bread. That sandwich is absolutely amazing. Make sure you go and check out the Coker Market right there at the four-way intersection in Coker for amazing food and community goods. It all comes down to this. Two teams vying for that one opportunity to become a national champion. We've got one school that just went over 1,000 wins versus the underdog role and the underdog team all season. Michigan versus Washington tonight for the grandest prize of them all, the national championship. We will get in there and discuss that game. Plus, we will be joined by Chris Phillips to talk about the Alabama-South Carolina matchup tomorrow night. That's all ahead on this edition of the Stingray Show. We've got a lot to cover. Let's get things rocking and rolling.
Hi, this is Tim Brando with a reminder. Those of you on Tide 100.9, look out. You're about to feel the buzz of Stingray.
This is Stephen Ray, a.k.a. Stingray, coming to you live from Tuscaloosa, Alabama.
I'm Heath Hopkins. I'm here in DeSoto County, Mississippi, right outside of Memphis, Tennessee. You know, Mark, I'm going to put you on the spot. Do you feel that responsibility to pay it forward and give some kid a chance coming up in the ranks, kind of like Tony did for you?
Why do you think I'm talking to Stingray tonight?
Thank you, man. I appreciate that.
No, I mean, look, no.
Hey, Stingray, here's the deal. When you get involved with Texas, it's like getting married to a stripper. and let me explain this. It looks good. It's kind of sexy on the surface. Yeah. But then you get the baggage, you get the drama, you get all that eventually comes with it. And that's what you get with Texas, and that's what the Big 12 learned.
And Heath, any thoughts on our show moving forward?
Hey, to everyone in Tuscaloosa listening here on Tide 100.9. With the Stingray Show, if you don't like it, you better learn to love it, because it's the best show going today, baby. Woo!
And ladies and gentlemen, with all of that, we want to welcome you inside another edition of the Stingray Show right here on the National Championship Day for two teams, Washington and Michigan. Heath, how are you doing, my friend?
Oh, Steven, man, it was a long, fun weekend. They're never long enough, right?
Yes.
So Heath, I wish we had more weekend and less weekdays, right?
That'd be ideal, man. So Heath, do you know what I really, really want tonight?
A winning lottery ticket.
Yeah, that would be nice too. But I want a decent national championship game, because we have not had a close national championship game since Alabama defeated Georgia in 2018, 26-23. Since then, the national championship scores have been 65-7. Last year, Georgia over TCU, Georgia over Alabama the previous year, 33-18. You had Alabama over Ohio State in the COVID year, 52-24. You had LSU over Clemson, 45-25. And then, of course, you had Clemson over Alabama, 44-16. Can we please have a decent national championship game, and one that is exciting for the first time since 2018?
Yeah. Usually national championship games in any sport are blowouts. It's just one team is of destiny. The other team gets behind early and they just fold. They get a break that doesn't go their way, and the other team capitalizes on it. And it's just like all the MO is on that side, and you just can't break it.
Right. And Heath, one of the major matchups to watch this evening, just like in the Alabama game, It is going to be the best offensive line in the entire country, the Washington Huskies, versus that stout Michigan defense. That is going to be the matchup of the game this evening. Which one can penetrate the other one is going to go a long way in determining this football game.
You know, Stephen, I really think tonight's going to be a blowout, and I hope it's not. I think it's just going to be all Michigan. I think there's too much Michigan.
Yeah.
I hope that's not the case. I am pulling for Washington. And the only reason I'm pulling for Washington, I'm not a Washington Huskies fan. I've never have been. This might be the first time I'm a fan of them. But just because of Dylan Johnson, former running back at Mississippi State, you know, when he walked out the door there at Mississippi State, not on good terms, and Leach was saying some negative things about him. He said some negative things about Leach. And then Leach passed away the next day.
Yeah.
And Dylan Johnson was very remorseful and very sad and very upset. And how it all ended. And my heart went out to him for that because he showed true remorse. And I thought Dylan Johnson was phenomenal at Mississippi State. And I didn't think they used him enough, to tell you the truth. And so he transferred out. He got a whole new beginning up there. And if you ever know about Dylan Johnson's background, you'd become a huge fan. He takes care of his son. He has an infant son.
Right.
And he takes care of him by himself. And so it's just an amazing story about him. And if you don't know it, you should read up on it. He is a really unusual, very unique class act football player.
Yep.
And of course, you could always pick him on the field. He's always wearing a hoodie underneath his shoulder pads. He's always done that. But that's the only reason I'm pulling for Washington, because I'm pulling for Dylan Johnson.
Oh, come on, dude. That's just a cover up for saying you don't like Harbaugh.
I actually love Jim Harbaugh. Everyone talks about, he's a cheater. He's a cheater. And I'm like, don't tell me that your team and your coaches never stole signs before. I can give you many of instances of just about every single SEC school that's done it. So don't tell me that. Well, they use video cameras. You want to tell me your team's never stole anything off a video camera or electronics? Give me a break. Stop. Yeah. Stop.
But Heath, I will tell you, though, this is an amazing thing that I was thinking about the other evening, looking forward to this game. You know, Jim Harbaugh was about to be on the chopping block up at Michigan because he could not ever get anything going when they went up against big-time teams. And the administration said, okay, Jim, you've got one more year to turn it around, but you're taking a pay cut in order to do that. Ever since that major pay cut that Jim Harbaugh took, Michigan has never looked back, and they have never been better as a football program.
I think you can say this. Harbaugh betted on himself. I think he knew what he had and what he had coming.
Yep.
He's like, you can give me a pay cut because it's going to cost you when I renegotiate this thing less than a year from now. It's going to cost you more. Yep. And it did. And Jim Harbaugh, once again, wins.
Yeah.
Everything Jim Harbaugh does, he wins.
Yeah.
You know, has he had setbacks? Yeah, of course. So has Nick Saban. So has every coach.
Mm-hmm.
But Jim Harbaugh wins at a super high level. I really think this, Stephen. I don't know Jim Harbaugh. Never met Jim Harbaugh. I don't even know if I've been in the same time zone with Jim Harbaugh. But I really think Jim Harbaugh wants to win a national title as a college coach and go back to the NFL and do it in the NFL and win a Super Bowl. And I think, Jimmy Johnson has done that. Barry Switzer has done that. There's not many people that have done both of those.
Right.
And I think Harbaugh wants to. He's already been in a Super Bowl before.
Yeah.
He led the 49ers to a Super Bowl.
Mm-hmm.
Look, if you look at Harbaugh, where he's been, everywhere he's been, he wins at not only does he wins at a uber high level.
Yeah.
And so when he was at University of San Diego, they care more about surfing than they do about football.
Yeah.
I'm not talking about San Diego State. I'm talking about Division II, University of San Diego.
Right.
Where guys are not on scholarship. Most of the guys are not on scholarship. He won high there.
Yeah.
At super high level.
And Heath, He's going to have the best opportunity to do that this evening versus Washington. So
Yeah, and that's
Heath, on that note, we got to take our first break, and when we come back, we are going to get to our Fave 5, and it's going to be our Fave 5 National Championship games. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. Be back in a flash. Citizens of West Alabama, have you heard the news? The Bank of Moundville, which was established way back in 1907, offers personal loans of all sizes, unsecured and secured, with competitive interest rates. You can contact them today at 205-371-2227. Once again, that is the Bank of Moundville, 205-371-2227, or go by and see them in downtown Moundville. They are an equal housing lender and a member of the FDIC. Do you guys have a lake or pond that you own but you don't know your fish population? Then you need to contact Honey Hole Fisheries right here in Tuscaloosa County, because they offer fish population analysis to give you a detailed look at how many fish you have in your pond or lake. They can also help you build the pond or lake of your dreams. Contact Honey Hole Fisheries and Jeff Bagwell at 205-799-0192 and let Honey Hole Fisheries design or create the lake of your dreams. Do you guys dream about owning a home or a condominium down on the beautiful beaches of Alabama, say Orange Beach, Gulf Shores, or maybe even Fairhope? Then let me tell you about First Class Real Estate South Home Group's owner, Celeste Hagler. She has brokers down there in the beautiful beaches of Alabama to help you purchase the home of your dreams and to live where you love in the state of Alabama. You can contact Celeste Hagler at 205-861-5698. Contact Celeste Hagler today to help you live where you loved in the state of Alabama.
Town Square Media. Eli Gold, Chris Stewart, and Roger Hoover live right here. Tide 100.9 is a proud partner of the Crimson Tide Sports Network.
Would you guys like to try a caramel cookie butter hot chocolate? Hey, you guys ordered the Blitzen so much at Strange Brew Coffee House over the holidays until Strange Brew made the Blitzen a permanent addition to Strange Brew Originals. Hey, it's cold outside, it's wintertime, you probably need a pick-me-up or maybe even something to warm you up. Go by Strange Brew Coffee House on the Strip at the University of Alabama, 1101 University Boulevard, and get you something that will warm your heart and your soul right here on the Strip at the University of Alabama. Welcome back inside the Stingray Show. Hope all is well with you guys right now as we are counting down the minutes to the national championship game between Michigan and Washington there in Houston. And Heath, you actually came up with a very, very good Fave 5 for today. So go on ahead and let everybody know what the Fave 5 is going to be this evening.
Our favorite 5 national champions or national championship games, either or. So whatever team that you enjoyed watching or whatever, I'm sure if I sit down and think longer about this, Stephen, my list would completely change. But to throw it out real quick, I couldn't decide between the 96 Florida Gators or the 08 Florida Gators for my number 5 spot.
Yeah.
You know, back then they didn't play national championships. Steve Spurrier went in, ranked number 3, 2-1, fell that day. And so he got to move from 3-1 back during the bowl game system back in those days. So, you know, Spurrier and that 96 team, that was a fun team with Danny Werfel and those guys. But 08 and Timmy Tebow beating up Oklahoma, I've been seeing a lot of highlights of that here lately. And when Major Wright hit that guy coming up the sideline in the first quarter and broke that guy in half, he about killed that guy. So those two teams, the Florida Gators, I'll put them at number 5. Number 4, the 1987 Miami Hurricanes. Vinny Testaverde, the Heisman Trophy winner that year. I absolutely loved that 87 team. I was in grade school, And you know how hard it is to find University of Miami gear in the 80s when you live in Memphis, Tennessee? It was super hard, but hey, Santa delivered that year. Santa delivered. I had a hoodie and a cap, and I was thrilled to death about getting them. I'm going to go on number 3. I'm going to go the 2019 LSU team, only because Joe Burrow had that incredible year. It was just crazy what he was doing. But when I started watching about that last fourth of the season, that LSU defense was so fun to watch. They were garbage the first 3 quarters of the season. That last quarter of the season, awesome. They were awesome. Number 2, I'm going to go 2018 Clemson because I didn't see it coming. Yeah. I did not see that 2018 Clemson team doing what they did and how they did it. I give the 2018 Clemson team as number 1, or number 2. But my number 1 team, Stephen, 1992 zone defense, number 7 Jay Barker, and that's right, the Alabama Crimson Tide. And I'm not saying that because we're on the radio here in Alabama. I'm not an Alabama fan. I'm not an Alabama hater. But that 92 team was so dominant on defense, and Jay Barker was like John Elway and Tim Tebow. When they needed him to deliver in the final few moments, he always did. And that's why I absolutely love Jay Barker and that 92 team. And that's my number 1 team of national champions. What about you?
Okay, so I went a little bit different from you. I went my fave 5 national championship games / playoff games, because there's not been a lot of good national championship games here in the playoff era. So at number 5, I'm going with the national championship game from January the 9th, 2017. Clemson stuns Alabama on the last play of the game. Clemson was down 24-14 going into the fourth quarter and scored 21 points in the fourth quarter to stun Alabama.
Mm-hmm.
Number 4, I'm going with Alabama over Georgia on the last play of the game in 2018. Devontae Smith made his name prominent in college football that day as Alabama knocked off the Georgia Bulldogs. All right, at number 3, I'm going here recently, the Michigan win over Alabama, just simply because of the excitement and the hype leading up to that game, because nobody else was talking about the other matchup. It was all on Michigan versus Alabama. Mm-hmm. At number 2, and the only reason I'm going with number 2 here is because I actually attended this game as a fan in person. It was the college football playoff semifinal in the Peach Bowl between number 1 LSU as they dominated number 4 Oklahoma 63-28, and that was the last collegiate game for one Jalen Hurts. And number 1, Heath, is going to be my all-time favorite playoff game up until this point. Nothing can top this one. The playoff game in 2018, number 3 Georgia upsets number 2 Oklahoma in double overtime in the Rose Bowl game. Georgia was down 21-7 in the fourth quarter, tied the game to force overtime with 55 seconds left, and then won it in overtime with a Nick Chubb run touchdown.
I was about to say, that was the Rose Bowl game when Sonny Michel, I think, showed out that game. Yeah. Yeah, I remember watching that one. That was one of the best college football games I've ever seen.
And like I said, man, ever since then, the national championship game has been blowout, 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 and blowout.
You know, Stephen, one game that I want to comment on while we're talking about all this, I think the game that I enjoyed watching the most was the Fiesta Bowl when Boise State beat Oklahoma.
Yeah.
Just because, again, I didn't see it coming.
Right.
I know I was pulling for Boise State. I just didn't think they had a dog's chance.
Right.
And then when they got there at the end, I was like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
Great stuff. Great stuff.
So, Heath, I do want to ask you before we go to break, give me your most disappointing team overall this past weekend.
Oh, Stephen, you go. Let me think about that. You go, and I'll let me think on it.
I'm going with what happened in Fayetteville, Arkansas, as the Arkansas Razorbacks now drop to 9-5 on the season. They lost to number 25 ranked Arkansas by 30 points at Bud Walton Arena, 83-51 on Saturday. That was an absolute shellacking by the Auburn Tigers over Arkansas there at Bud Walton Arena, and it is not easy to go in there and win a game at Bud Walton Arena, nonetheless dominate them like they did.
Yeah, I'll tell you this, one team that I was the most impressed with was South Carolina. South Carolina finished dead last year, and they are undefeated.
Yes.
Right now. Or are they 13-1? One or the other? 13-1. Yeah. That blows my mind. New coach, new everything, and didn't see this one coming. Didn't see it coming. So good for the game. Hey, South Carolina needs something to cheer about other than women's basketball.
Hey, it's transfer portal era, man. You can turn it around in a year.
You know, it's so funny that you mentioned that. I heard someone talk about Jeff Lebby over at Mississippi State, and he said, this is not a rebuild. I'm not coming to take a rebuild job. He said, that's what the transfer portal's for. And I was like, you know, this transfer portal is putting so much pressure on first-year head coaches, but good Lord, man. You know, it used to be a year or two before we'd see something, or maybe year 3 where they would take off. That's the defining year is year 3. Look what we're doing now, Stephen. They're winning right off the bat. In all sports.
Since 1999, residents of Tuscaloosa has depended on this butcher shop and grocery store. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats. With their specialty meats and fresh to frozen bulk vegetables, you can prepare delicious home-cooked meals all week long. At South's Finest Meats, customer service is their number one priority, and when you shop with them, you can expect to be treated like an MVP. Go by and check out South's Finest Meats at 3201 10th Avenue right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats, the official sponsor of the Stingray Show. So Heath, on that note, we got to take another break, and when we come back, we are going to continue to talk about college basketball as we are going to preview South Carolina versus Alabama. That will be tomorrow night right here on the Stingray Show. We will be right back right after this quick break. How would you guys like to try a caramel cookie butter hot chocolate? Hey, you guys ordered the Blitzen so much at Strange Brew Coffee House over the holidays until Strange Brew made the Blitzen a permanent addition to Strange Brew Originals. Hey, it's cold outside, it's wintertime, you probably need a pick-me-up or maybe even something to warm you up. Go by Strange Brew Coffee House on the Strip at the University of Alabama, 1101 University Boulevard, and get you something that will warm your heart and your soul right here on the Strip at the University of Alabama. Citizens of West Alabama, have you heard the news? The Bank of Moundville, which was established way back in 1907, offers personal loans of all sizes, unsecured and secured, with competitive interest rates. You can contact them today at 205-371-2227. Once again, that is the Bank of Moundville, 205-371-2227, or go by and see them in downtown Moundville. They are an equal housing lender and a member of the FDIC. Residents of Tuscaloosa, are you guys upsizing, downsizing, looking for college housing, or even relocating for your job right here to Tuscaloosa? If that's the case, then you need to contact Celeste Hagler, owner and operator of First Class Real Estate South Home Group right here in Tuscaloosa. She can help you with the buying, selling, and investment needs throughout the state of Alabama. You can contact Celeste at 205-861-5698. Reach out to Celeste again at 205-861-5698 and schedule a consultation to discuss your real estate goals and to live where you love in the state of Alabama.
Follow Tide 100.9 on Facebook today to watch our live shows, read the great articles, and interact with Bama fans today.
Welcome back inside the Stingray Show with Heath Hopkins and Stephen Ray. Hope all is well with you guys. And now we are about to get to our very special guest this evening, who is formerly of the Spurs Up Show, who has now been rebranded to SEC Unfiltered. Ladies and gentlemen, please help us welcome back to the Stingray Show to help us preview Alabama and South Carolina tomorrow evening right here, Mr. Chris Phillips. Chris, how are you doing, my friend?
Stephen, Heath, I'm doing well. I appreciate you guys. I'm still getting used to the SEC Unfiltered tag when getting introduced on shows, but no, I appreciate you bringing me on, man. I mean, obviously, really exciting times for us over here on this side with the rebranding and relaunching, and still a South Carolina guy. Obviously, while we're talking Gamecocks and Bama, but in regards to the content and the entity as a whole, man, always loved the SEC, always loved sports in general. So really, really excited. I think all those that have been following along to this point are excited as well, just seeing the content and talking about the great conference that is the SEC. So it was a great weekend of SEC hoops, by the way, and just excited to continue talking that with you guys.
Well, Chris, before we move to college basketball, I have to get your take on the national championship tonight. Michigan, Washington could potentially be Jim Harbaugh's final game in college at Michigan. Chris, who takes home the national championship this evening?
Yeah, it's really hard. First thing, it's really weird to see a national championship without the SEC in it, right? I think Georgia's got to be kicking themselves. I don't think there's a team out there more so than Georgia kicking themselves, because I think one bad Saturday, and I'm not taking anything away from Bama, by the way, but one bad Saturday in Atlanta cost Georgia an opportunity at the national championship. I think most of us agree that, Georgia would have probably had their way with both Michigan and Washington, if we're being perfectly honest. But the fact of the matter is they didn't, and Alabama got their shot and couldn't get the job done. Michigan feels like the team of destiny. It's hard to bet against Michael Penix Jr. You watch him. He is a walking, living, breathing cheat code. He is like a video game out there making some of these throws and plays he's making. But, I thought Texas's defensive front and their physicality would give Washington problems. I thought they'd get in the face of Michael Penix. I don't even think they laid a hand on him. That being said, again, Michigan, for whatever reason, love it or hate it, they feel like this team of destiny. They feel like they're on a mission, and it feels like it's going to end in a national title. So I am picking Michigan in a close game. I think despite there not being SEC representation in this game, I think it's going to be a great national championship. Obviously, the final college football game of the 2023-2024 season. So really excited to watch. But I am siding with the Wolverines. I think Blake Corum, that running game, and I think that defense, I think this is just a different level of defense that Washington's going up against. But I think it's a great back-and-forth affair, and I think Michigan, at the end of the day, pulls it out, and I think Jim Harbaugh swiftly exits to the NFL.
Chris, you mentioned the Bama-Georgia SEC championship game. I keep hearing everyone talking this and that, and I tell everybody, both sides knew this was an elimination game.
Yeah.
Both sides knew coming into it, it was an elimination game. If Georgia lost, there was a great chance they knew they were not going to make the playoff. And Bama definitely knew that would have given them 2 losses. But with that being said, do you think Georgia knew? Because their fan base wants to revisit that now. But I think the team and the coaches, they knew they had to win that SEC championship game to make the playoff.
Yeah.
I mean, I think Bama certainly knew, right? What were you, number 6, I think, going into that game? So you were on the outside looking in, or number 7, or number 8. Number 8, okay. So you were definitely on the outside looking in. To have any shot to move up, you were going to have to win that ball game. I mean, I think Georgia, I felt like they needed to win, but I thought with a close loss, there was still an opportunity where you could look at Georgia and say, okay, I mean, they're 29-1 in their last 30. Like they they're one of the best 4 teams in college football. And I mean, you watch that game, and it was a 3-point loss in Atlanta, in which, and again, you take nothing away from Bama, but like, that's the sloppiest game Georgia played all year, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Like, one of the sloppiest, at least. Self-inflicted wounds all over the place, just uncharacteristic mistakes. They still lost the game by 3. And there's nobody that watches college football, that loves college football, that watched that game and walked away saying anything other than those 2 were 2 of the 4 best teams in all of college football. As you see, my power goes out here. Anyways, though, I think Georgia certainly was one of the best 4 teams. And, you know, it's a shame we didn't get to see them compete as it comes back on. But, no, I mean, it's like you mentioned, it was an elimination game. And it just makes me really excited for the 12-team playoff, as we're going to get an opportunity to really watch this stuff play out on the field. And I don't want to sound hypocritical, because we got the game itself in the SEC championship, but man, you do have to wonder, especially after, and I know it was a practice squad version of Florida State, but what Georgia did to FSU in that Orange Bowl, it's hard to not feel like that Georgia would have had their way with a couple of those teams in the playoff. But, you know, it is what it is. Bama won the game outright, and they made the big jump. But I think the bigger shame, guys, is like Georgia falling from 1 to 6 was insane. That was insane. And putting FSU ahead of Georgia, that was insane. At least we got to disprove that on the field.
So, Chris, the final question that I have for you, and then we will switch to college basketball. The final question for you about college football: do you think this is the last hurrah for Jim Harbaugh and Michigan? Do you think he's going to the NFL next season?
I do. Where there's smoke, there's fire, right? And there's a lot of smoke right now. And I think, too, when you factor in, you know, the way the NCAA has been sort of picking on Jim Harbaugh and his Michigan program, and they've kind of zeroed in on him. If they want to find something, they're going to find it. You know, they're going to find it at some point. It's only going to get bigger and bigger and bigger. And obviously with the sign stealing stuff this year with Connor Stallions, I mean, it obviously started with a cheeseburger, right? And it evolved into the craziness we saw throughout the season, getting suspended half the year. You know, again, guys, this was rumored a couple years ago, right, where potentially Jim Harbaugh could make the jump back to the NFL. And now we're hearing more rumors, and it seems like, again, the stars are aligning to where maybe it's the Chargers' job, maybe it's the Raiders' job. You know, I think Jim Harbaugh is an NFL guy. He's a Michigan man, but I think especially if they win the national championship. And I don't know what will help the case more, whether it's lose it or win it, where it's like, okay, if you lose, you kind of should sail off in the sunset. Or if you win, it's like you reach the pinnacle of the mountain. There's nothing else he can do at Michigan.
Right.
He's done it all. And now, again, you ride off into the sunset and go take the NFL job. Again, I think it will be the latter. I think Michigan will win the ball game. But either way, I think it is going to happen. I think NFL is the next stop for Jim Harbaugh. I think he will make that leap. And, you know, I think some of it has to do, again, with the NCAA stuff and the sanctions and just not wanting to deal with that. So, yes, I do think Jim Harbaugh, whether it's Chargers, Raiders, or elsewhere, will land in an NFL gig somewhere shortly.
Who let the dogs out?
I know. It's craziness at the household today with the power, the dogs, everything. So
I'll say this before we throw it to break, to touch on what Chris said. You know, I heard Jackie Sherrill say it years ago, back in the 90s. He goes, once you get on the NCAA's, you know, target list, you never leave. They stay on you. Doesn't matter if you change schools, change conferences, go to the NFL and come back. They always keep an eye on you. And he said that's why a lot of coaches, when they get on that target, they'll go off to the NFL and they won't ever come back.
It's a very good point, Nav, and I think they continue to follow him, especially he stays at Michigan. So what will be the fallout if and when he leaves? I don't know. Are they going to continue to try to hound Michigan, and maybe this 2023 season is looked at a little bit differently than we're viewing it now? I don't know necessarily, but yeah, I think Harbaugh, again, I think he knows everything you're talking about. Again, he's an NFL guy, so it's not like a foreign jump for him. I think he'll be excited to go back.
Are you guys in the mood for community goods and great barbecue? That's what you'll find at the Coker Market, located in Coker, Alabama, at the four-way intersection off of County Road 140. Their hours of operation are Wednesday through Saturday, 11 a.m. until 7 p.m., and their menu items include the Midnight, which is smoked ham, smoked pork, Swiss cheese, Creole mustard, mayonnaise, and a pickle, grilled on French bread. That sandwich is absolutely amazing. Make sure you go and check out the Coker Market right there at the four-way intersection in Coker for amazing food and community goods. So Chris, hold that thought because we're up against our final break. And when we come back, we are going to turn our attention to the hardwood as Alabama takes on South Carolina tomorrow evening. That's on the other side of the break. You're listening to the Stingray Show. We will be right back.
Jackie Sherrill on that lawsuit against the NCAA. I know that.
On the next Inside the Locker Room with Coach Wimp Sanderson and Barry Sanderson.
Tune in Tuesday, 7:30. We'll have Kevin Skarbinski on. We'll look at the Michigan-Washington game. We'll also have Coach Jack Crow on at 8. We'll break down that game as well. And also look at the Alabama Crimson Tide and what they need to do to improve next season.
Inside the Locker Room, weekdays 7 to 9 a.m. on Tide 100.9 and Tide100.9.com.
Since 1999, residents of Tuscaloosa has depended on this butcher shop and grocery store. I'm talking about South's Finest Meats. With their specialty meats and fresh to frozen bulk vegetables, you can prepare delicious home-cooked meals all week long. At South's Finest Meats, customer service is their number one priority, and when you shop with them, you can expect to be treated like an MVP. Go by and check out South's Finest Meats at 3201 10th Avenue right there in Tuscaloosa. South's Finest Meats, the official sponsor of the Stingray Show. Your life can change on a dime, and if you are relocating for your job up to the Rocket City of Huntsville, the fastest growing city in the state of Alabama, you need to contact Celeste Hagler of First Class Real Estate South Home Group. She has brokers all over North Alabama to help you get settled with buying a new home in North Alabama. You can contact her at 205-861-5698. Once again, that is Celeste Hagler, 205-861-5698. Contact Celeste Hagler today to live where you love in the state of Alabama, even in the Rocket City of Huntsville. How would you guys like to try a caramel cookie butter hot chocolate? Hey, you guys ordered the Blitzen so much at Strange Brew Coffee House over the holidays until Strange Brew made the Blitzen a permanent addition to Strange Brew Originals. Hey, it's cold outside, it's wintertime, you probably need a pick-me-up or maybe even something to warm you up. Go by Strange Brew Coffee House on the Strip at the University of Alabama, 1101 University Boulevard, and get you something that will warm your heart and your soul right here on the Strip at the University of Alabama.
Find Tide on Twitter at Tide109 to keep up with show announcements, guests, and our reporters in the field.
Welcome back inside of our final segment right here on the Stingray Show. Our guest this evening is Chris Phillips, formerly of the Spurs Up Show, now with SEC Unfiltered on social media. And before we get back to him, I do want to mention that tomorrow evening, right here on Tide 100.9, it is Alabama versus South Carolina in men's basketball. And because of that, there will be no Stingray Show tomorrow evening because of that basketball game. And to help us preview the South Carolina-Alabama matchup from the South Carolina perspective, we are about to get to Chris Phillips. And Chris, I do want to ask you, South Carolina coming into this matchup has only lost one time this season so far. Going ahead and break down the season for South Carolina moving into this game tomorrow night.
Yeah, guys, it's been a great year for South Carolina. Lamont Paris, year two of his tenure. Year one was an unmitigated disaster, right? 11-win season. You did have Gigi Jackson, who's currently in the NBA now, but, taking over year one of virtually a rebuild, right? The way that Frank Martin left it. And again, it was a comedy of errors, right? South Carolina wasn't just losing. They were uncompetitive. And you got to give Lamont Paris and company a ton of credit. The work they did in the transfer portal this offseason, picking up not just key pieces, but in talented pieces, but veteran guys who have been on winning teams, who have a lot of experience. I think you're seeing that in guys like Talon Cooper, BJ Mack, and then Michi Johnson, what he's doing at the guard position. I mean, he's been fantastic for South Carolina. I have that one lone loss, obviously, on the road at Clemson, who's a top 25 team. Outside of that, guys, they've been perfect and really started SEC play in a big way, winning that game against Mississippi State on Saturday. Back and forth game. They were obviously the home underdog, which I thought was interesting going into that one. South Carolina riding some crazy momentum right now. So, again, those names I mentioned, that's who Alabama fans can expect to see. And, it's going to be a tough test. This is only their second or I think third true road game of the 2023-2024 season. And one of those obviously was a loss to Clemson. The other was a win against East Carolina. So it's going to be a challenge, guys. It's going to be a test anytime you go on the road in the SEC. It's why protecting your home floor is so important, right? I mean, Alabama just felt that over the weekend. They got the win, but it was much closer than expected at Vanderbilt at Memorial Gymnasium, which is just such a weird place to play. And it just goes to show that, even the bottom dwellers in the SEC can beat you because it's just hard to go on the road and win. So I'm really intrigued to see what South Carolina is able to do. Again, they've been so good this year at 13-1, navigated the non-conference schedule well and took down, I think, a quality Mississippi State team. But going on the road in the SEC is a different beast. And so it's going to be a great test and a great challenge for the Gamecocks.
Chris, fun question. Dawn Staley looks like she's having her most dominant team right now. Who's getting more buzz there with the local fan base, the men or the women? Because this story with the men being 13-1, winning on the road, making things happen after the disaster that you talked about last year, the 11-win season, I got to think that the Carolina fan base is all over this men's team right now. And that's not taking anything away from Dawn Staley and her dominance.
I'd probably say it's equal, guys. I mean, certainly still, and it's funny. The only reason there wouldn't be the same amount of buzz or there wouldn't be more buzz for the women is because at this point it's become so ho-hum how good the Gamecocks are. Like it's, you know what I mean? And that's a shame to say because I equate being a South Carolina women's basketball fan like being a fan of the Patriots back when they had Tom Brady at starting quarterback, where it's like, the regular season's fun, but that's all it is. Like the season doesn't even begin for Dawn Staley's team until like the Sweet 16 because it's literally national championship or bust every year. And I'm not saying that like discredit the regular season or take away the great things they've done in the regular season over the years, but you guys get what I'm saying. It's like being an Alabama football fan. Like, you don't even start, like the season is not judged based off of were you good enough to beat that team on that Saturday. The season's judged against and measured against, are you good enough to win a national championship? That's what it comes down to, right?
Yeah, so, a lot of fans at Tuscaloosa are saying this year's a bust. I'm like, you're SEC champions.
Yeah, I mean, people in Athens as well are saying the season was a quote-unquote failure or fell short of expectations. You went 13-1, right? It's because the expectations are just different. So I think there's still obviously a lot of buzz with Dawn Staley's team, but it's kind of like, okay, they're doing what they're supposed to do, right? Which is crazy to think about, but yeah, this men's basketball team, man. And it's been talked about for years about the challenges of South Carolina football winning, South Carolina basketball winning and winning at a high rate. And, I think there are certainly challenges. And, what is the fan support, right? I mean, baseball has always kind of been looked at as like the crown jewel of South Carolina. And then we know, guys, that football is king on virtually every single SEC campus, maybe outside of Kentucky. But I think South Carolina fans do love their basketball, but it's one of those things where they've got to have a product, right? Well, now they have a product, and CLA was rocking over the weekend. And so I think the buzz, the energy, the excitement, I think it's there, guys. I mean, I think if I remember correctly, South Carolina's off to, I think, their best start since that Final Four run back in 2017. So I'm not saying that's what this year's team is going to be, but I think certainly when you're in year two of a new coach and, year one, I think went as we expected, and the expectations this year were virtually nothing, super low. I mean, I said it all preseason. I think most folks agree that an NIT appearance would have been a wildly successful season, and South Carolina is certainly on their way towards that and maybe even doing more. And, this team somehow finds a way to go 500 or better in SEC play and does what they need to do to make an NCAA tournament appearance, guys, that would be a wildly successful. If
they're north of 500 in SEC play, they're easily getting into the big dance.
Yeah, so I would say the buzz is probably equal because there is a lot of buzz for Dawn Staley's team, right? The support and the love for what they do is massive. But certainly the fans of the Courtcocks are fired up watching what Lamont and company are doing.
So, Chris, my final question for you is this. South Carolina, Alabama on the hardwood tomorrow evening. South Carolina wins this basketball game if what?
Meechie Johnson stays hot. I mean, you look at that Mississippi State game, that's why they won it, right? I think he had 24 points in that ball game. And it's not just what he does shooting the basketball, but it's the defensive side as well, and just that physicality, the relentless nature in which, he made a key steal down the stretch when it looked like South Carolina might let that thing slip away. So I think it runs through Meechie Johnson, guys. They've got other pieces, like I mentioned, a Miles Studi on the outside shooting the basketball, a BJ Mack down low, a Talon Cooper, the Minnesota transfer, a Jacoby Wright. Colin Murray's Boyle is a great freshman for them as well. That's getting more time. So they've got other pieces, but I think it all starts with Meechie Johnson. He's kind of the guy that if he's not clicking, the rest of it's not clicking. And good news for the Gamecocks, he's been clicking all year. So, I think if you early on see him getting a flow, getting a rhythm, I think South Carolina's got a great shot to pull it off. I know you didn't ask me for my prediction, Stingray, but I will say I think South Carolina probably falls up short in this one. I am going to pick Alabama. I just think it's really tough to go on the road and win in the SEC. And I do think this team, for as good as they've been, the forward steps they've taken, I think they're still going to take some lumps in SEC play because the league is just so good. It's so deep. I mean, we saw it over the weekend, guys. And so I would probably side with Bama in this one, but I tell you what, it would be a massive win for South Carolina if they were able to start 2-0. And I think you'd really see the Gamecocks start to turn some heads in regards to, SEC folks looking around and saying, okay, this team is for real.
Yeah.
So, Chris, I was just about to ask you for your prediction, so you went on ahead and got that out of the way. So, Chris, look, man, thank you so much for taking time out of your schedule to join us. Chris, we will definitely catch up about college basketball later this month, and we will have you back on to preview college baseball, my friend.
I love that. Can't wait, guys. I appreciate it.
Have a great day.
Have a good week.
Yeah, man. You too. Take care.
All right. So, Heath, that is going to wrap up another edition of the Stingray Show. Because of Alabama basketball, like we've been talking about tomorrow evening, right here on Tide 100.9, there will be no Stingray Show. So, Heath, we will see them again on Hump Day on Wednesday when we will actually be doing an interview show with the one and only Akeem Judd, former running back from Ole Miss. And Heath, let's go ahead and do it together, my friend. We are out. We will see you guys on Wednesday evening right back here on the Stingray Show. Go Blue! Michigan wins it all tonight, and good luck to Alabama tomorrow evening right here on Tide 100.9. See you back here on Hump Day, Wednesday. And Jim Harbaugh does the double bird salute on his way out the door to the NFL.
That's a
residents